Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor back. Today is going to be a vibrant show because we have a wonderfully vibrant clinical nutritionist and holistic health counselor. We have none other than the proprietor of thewholejourney.com, Christa Orecchio, with us. Christa, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Christa, I had to have you on the show because when you go to thewholejourney.com and you look yourself up as well as your associate Emily, I'm like, whatever these women are doing to give themselves these blue eyes, sign me up, because you have like the most piercing blue eyes I've ever seen in my entire life. So how can I get blue eyes like yours? I'm just kidding.
You're funny, but thank you. I'll take that compliment. Unfortunately, there's no nutritional supplement to change your eye color.
Oh, that's funny. Well, Christa, thank you so much for joining us. And just to get us started here, your website is called The Whole Journey. And from what I understand, you actually went on quite the journey yourself to get to where you are today. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I actually came to that name. I remember standing in a spiritual bookstore and seeing this beautiful watercolor of a bird flying in the distance, and the quote that went with that was painted in calligraphy said, "All that this human experience is about is our journey towards wholeness." And it resonated with me so completely. I thought, you know what? One of these days I'm going to start a company and I'm going to call it The Whole Journey, because I just feel like it reflects my entire life path of how I found nutrition, and how when you start taking care of yourself in one way, you start taking care of yourself in so many other ways. And so it helped me just develop my philosophy of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and addressing the whole person at the same time.
I love that story, Christa. And you mentioned something in there which I just want to focus on for 1 second, and that's how when you focus on enhancing one area of your life, that can then permeate other areas. One question I have for you, Christa, in your clinical practice, we are bombarded daily with multiple, like, be better at this. You need to be better at this. You are inadequate at all of these things. How do we improve ourselves, but do that in a way that doesn't constantly make us feel like we're inadequate?
I love that question. I love the mantra, I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. And in our practice, we break our food into two different categories. We call it primary food and secondary food. And so secondary food, we're going to figure out the right formula, the actual food that you eat, what works for your current state of health, your genetics, your biochemistry. We'll figure that out. We'll help people become flexible with it. But then we talk about something called primary food, which are the things that feed you other than food, that feed you in ways that food never can. So the quality of your spiritual connection. Do you have honest and open relationships? What kind of self-care are you doing? Career satisfaction, or whatever what are you here to do? Are you satisfied with how you're creatively expressing yourself? And then physical movement that you enjoy. So instead of bombarding people with you're not enough, it's how do we evaluate the primary foods and the secondary foods, see that they're inextricably connected, and start to create balance in your life through harmony and more self-care and self-love, which is absolutely not a selfish way to approach life, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And in fact, the thing you said, it's not a selfish way to approach life. One of the things my publisher made me rip out of my book, because it wasn't sciencey enough, was this Aristotelian concept of self-love, or the old ancient philosopher Aristotle talked about how self-love was very distinct from being selfish, and in fact was this make the most of yourself so that you can be of most service to others. Because again, if you're not living your full life, how can you help anyone else live theirs? And that seems to be the opposite of selfishness.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the more that we do that, the better life we have. And like you said, the more valuable we are. And I know that you have mostly women listening to your show, and I say that I really have to drive that point home. If I do my job correctly as a nutritionist and holistic health counselor, after 3 months, these women, they never have to worry about going back. Their perspective is shifted, and they can be flexible with their food in their life for the rest of their life, because they understand this concept. And I think it's really important for women. It's almost been ingrained in us that we're superstars. If you give to your spouse and to your kids, you basically give until you're dead and throw yourself at the end of the list, then you're a hero. And I think that paradigm needs to be flipped on its head if we're going to be healthy, happy, live a balanced life, and then let our light shine a little bit brighter.
Well, Christa, what are some of the things we can start doing to help our light shine brighter while not feeling like we're not doing enough to make our light shine brighter?
That's a really good question. So it just depends whether we start with the physical or whether we start with the emotional. But you definitely have to look at how you're feeding your body and how you can also accept it. I think your research is really interesting on women that are naturally thin and how do you get that? Is it genetically shiftable? And there's so much of what we talk about is natural weight loss with ease and grace. You're not going to become, an airbrushed model, but we want to find what is your natural weight you can maintain living in 80-20 balance, which is what you do 80% of the time makes up your health. And you have to enjoy your life as well with that 20%. And so I have just simple things that I have people do every day and action items that they build. I mean, as simple as drinking enough water throughout the day is really important. Starting the day with 16 ounces of room temperature water with the juice of half a lemon or some raw apple cider vinegar will get excess acid out of the body, will get metabolism going. And oddly enough, that small act of self-care is something that will set the tenor of your day, get metabolism going. And it's these little choices that we make where we're voting for ourselves versus making the easier choice to just grab a cup of coffee, skip breakfast, head out the door. And so by just doing something as simple as having some lemon water, making sure you eat within 30 minutes of waking up, you'll establish that. On the primary food section of things, I have women, if at all possible, take one night a week completely to themselves and at least to have 2 hours completely to themselves. That helps with that sense of expansion completely.
Christa, what are your thoughts on, you can even just hear this in your voice, your entire business, your entire being is focused on this sense of wholeness, and I get the sense of serenity from you. How do we... There seems to be this paradox in our culture where it's the idea that health is mutually exclusive with happiness. And I know that might sound absurd, but think about it. We're like, making the healthy choice and then making the fun choice are almost sometimes presented as two opposite things. But again, to go back to ancient philosophy, this idea of getting joy from noble things and how doing the right thing actually is the most joyous thing. How do we help shift our mind from this idea of health equals deprivation and sacrifice and suffering to health is happiness?
Oh, too bad we don't have video because I have the biggest smile on my face. That was really beautifully said. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Right. And that's the thing. That's why I, when we were talking before getting started with our cookbook, that's why I called it 180 delicious ways to use food as medicine, because you don't have to, like I said, roll around in wheatgrass and eat twigs to be a healthy person. You can absolutely enjoy your food so much and be healthy and be vibrant at the same time. And that's where we have to have a huge paradigm shift in this country. And so much of it is a game of biochemistry. And in our practice, we have two philosophies. Instead of focusing on denial, deprivation, and willpower, we focus on upgrading, which is, okay, you like this food. I get it. You see it as a treat. Eat this food instead. It tastes exactly the same, if not even better, but no negative interaction in the body. So that's the idea of consistently upgrading, so it happens slowly. And the second idea is, or theory, is overcrowding. The more we add the good things in, the more the cravings for the unsupportive foods fall away. So if it's a game of biochemistry, the thing is we have to get the perspective shift mentally, but you have to experience it in your body. And a lot of us that look at eating pizza and burgers and fries and all that stuff as a treat and having healthy food as, making a sacrifice, our biochemistry is flowing in the wrong direction like a whirlpool with the strength of an auto-flowing whirlpool. So by overcrowding and upgrading, we slowly turn the whirlpool in the opposite direction. And then you're almost living in true alignment because you're respecting the intuitive wisdom of the body. You're craving foods that are good for you. You're enjoying your food, and it's effortless, and the mind gets out of the way. So that's our approach, and that's what we do. And I'm not against eating anything like burgers or, for me, it's all about quality, the quality of food. And when you start upgrading the quality, where the sourcing came from, what you eat, how you eat, the other stuff, you realize that you've just been stuck in an addictive cycle and it's not real food and it actually doesn't even taste that good. And you start to look at it differently of, that's not treating myself. If I eat that, do I want to lose the next 3 hours to bloating and mental fog and just kind of feeling out of it? And that's where emotional freedom comes in with food.
Now I wish we had video turned on because the concept of overcrowding and upgrade. I mean, the tagline we use over here at Smarter Science of Slim is "Eat more, smarter," because that's right. When you eat so much high quality food, you not only are you just too full. We've all been too full for dessert before. For some of us, it might be easier than others, but we've all been too full for dessert. So we know what that feels like. And when we do that, when we eat an abundance of nutrient-dense, hormonally healing food, we, as you said, we upgrade our body and we create this virtuous cycle. And if it seems too good to be true, Christa, one thing that I appreciate about the vegetarian and vegan communities, while I may not necessarily agree with all of their dietary practices, is they demonstrate. We have millions of examples of people who every day avoid an entire group of foods that most people find delicious without any struggle. They're not like, damn it, I wish I could eat that steak. They really honestly have no desire to eat that. And that's because they've shifted their mindset. They've changed how they look at food. And if we could do the same thing, but instead of maybe drawing the dividing line between plants and animals, draw the dividing line between food and non-food or edible products, then maybe we could live that life of nutritional serenity as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Probably the two biggest challenges are teaching people, for me, to navigate what does that mean? What is real food? Because we have a lot of challenges facing our food supply with not enough minerals in the soil and the water and genetically modified foods and the raw materials that actually go into processed foods, how they have changed so much. And so putting people on a real food challenge. I mean, even something as simple as if we were eating meat as chicken or beef, is it real or is it not? And if it's real, it's what did that animal eat? How did that animal live? How was it raised? Of the questions that you have to ask. And so I agree with you there, is we have to get people eating real food. And like you said, I love, and you studied hormones so much, and now you say eat more food. And so many of us need to do that, and the right quality and the right type. And I see a lot of quote unquote adrenal fatigue in my practice. And more and more I'm looking at it as just metabolic devastation, with adrenal fatigue being a symptom of that metabolic devastation of just people being severely malnourished, no matter how much they're eating. So it's important.
It's very important, Christa. And with the time constraints that we have on our lives and such a disturbing impact that the food industry or food manufacturers have had on every single aspect of our food supply, how do we apply 80-20 there? Like, let's say we get, okay, if I can't find it directly in nature, it's not a food. Like, let's just broad strokes define a food as a plant or an animal that is found in nature. I'm not sure there's any animals that aren't found in nature, but regardless. So anyway, is there because certainly we can go really deep, right? We can go like local, no antibiotics, yada, yada, yada. Or we could just say eat food. Where's the 80-20 in terms of food quality, or is there one?
Well, I guess I can give you my own life of 80-20. I'll work to get people off of GMOs. I mean, I could talk about those for hours. I mean, talking about their ability to create leaky gut syndrome and endocrine imbalances and immune devastation. So I have people eating real food. And then what is your 20%? Well, let me tell you, I really like French fries, but I'll go to a place like Burger Lounge where I know the oil that they're cooked in. My 20% would be 3 or 4 alcoholic drinks a week, a couple of cups of coffee, and some chocolate here and there, or naturally sweetened desserts, maybe a week. So that would constitute a 20%. And then the 80% is pretty much, I'm as clean as possible at home. And every now and then you do what you want when you go out. But when you get that whirlpool shift, and I mean, it's different because I'm in Southern California, so we obviously have a lot more choices in restaurants, and we're giving our clients a list of restaurants. We ask a lot of questions when we eat out of what oil do you cook it in, where are the animals raised, all of this. So we do that work for them. It's harder in other parts of the country. If you're in other parts of the country, I just say do your best to keep it clean at home and make smarter choices when you go out.
And Christa, where do you think the role of, I know you must get this all the time, I'm curious how you answer it. Sometimes there may be this perception that this is only a lifestyle for the rich and only a lifestyle for the elite. Is that true?
Well, Jonathan, I do get that question all the time. There's videos on my site, how to eat healthy on a budget and all of those things. No, I don't think it's for the rich. I think it's choices. And we've somehow been conditioned to think that food should be the cheapest part of our monthly budget. But food goes into our body. It's what makes up our organs, our thoughts, our emotions, the quality of our life, our future health. And so it's about maybe, do you really need all those cable channels? I mean, you can really make different choices, right? Of where are we spending all these monthly bills and all of these different things. But it has to be a value system. Like my father just came to town a few weeks ago from the East Coast, and he said, do you really buy $9 eggs? Like pastured eggs. And he's blown away. He's like, they tell you where they come from. They're naming these chickens. And I just said, that's my value system. And so I will cut back in other ways. Or so I think that once it becomes a value, then, and you get that perspective shift and you really understand how it affects the impact and the quality of your life, you could shift it. But we do need to do something politically and on a bigger platform to make healthy food more affordable, because it has become ridiculous in terms of what it takes to buy clean and natural food.
I love what you said about values and just choosing where we spend our resources, because in addition, building off of what you said about where we spend our money, I also sometimes struggle with some ratio of how we choose to spend our time. Let me give you one concrete example. While I think exercise is wonderful, and I certainly think movement is brilliant, and we must do it to be healthy, the amount of time that we sometimes are willing to throw at exercise. For example, we spend 30 minutes just driving to the gym, and then we spend another 30 minutes just driving back from the gym. Forget about the actual time spent in the gym, but we don't have time to cook our food. And I say to myself, if we could just cook, I mean, like our grandmothers, of course, our food supply is contaminated, but if we just cooked our own food, if we just did that, so if you want to spend 10 hours a week on exercise, more power to you. But if you're spending 10 hours a week exercising and you eat all of your meals outside of the home, I mean, what a profound change you could make by just taking 20% of that time and shifting it over to the kitchen. What do you think?
Yeah, weight loss happens in the kitchen, fitness in the gym. Why don't you just put your running shoes on, save that hour, go for a walk or a jog, and you have an extra hour for cooking. But it's a challenge that I have in my life as well, and I'm sure you face it too. It's just you've got to almost run your life like a business, figure out your values, what's most important. For me, I try as much as possible on Sunday evenings, and I get clients to do the same. 2 or 3 hours, and we teach cooking for convenience classes. Okay, how are you going to make a week's worth of meals in 2.5 hours on a Sunday night? That way you can have 10-minute meals all week, and you can make it easy and you can make it convenient. But again, it's making that choice. Okay, let's get off Facebook or whatever we're doing where we end up killing time, and really just looking at the bird's eye view of your life and saying, okay, I'm going to stick to what I value, and sometimes that's hard to do, but it's infinitely rewarding.
Chris, I got to tell you, you mentioned spending Sunday night cooking, and that definitely hit home because last night, Sunday night, I spent it cooking, and my wife and I made this. You're gonna love this. I'm so proud of. Like we generally don't follow recipes. We do a little chemistry experience in the kitchen, and they sometimes backfire. But this one did not, and it's like the uber healthy meatloaf we have, and it might sound gross, but I promise it doesn't taste gross. It's a combination of completely organic, grass-fed, hormone-free beef liver, which is one of the most nutrient-dense foods in the whole world, and then we combine that with some organic, hormone-free, blah, 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 ground beef. And then we combine a bunch of fresh garlic and fresh onions and some wonderful seasonings. And we put some all-natural marinara sauce in there. And then we top it with our marinara sauce. And man, we've got like nutrient density and deliciousness up the wazoo.
Oh, I love that. I don't know if you'd be willing to share that recipe. I would love to put it on our site, link it back to yours, because it sounds like it'd be amazing, and I have such a hard time when you say grass-fed beef liver. I just feel people's energy turn off. And oh my God, to me, I don't know how to get it in my diet. I blended it up and made a pate and tried to freeze it supplement, with my smoothie in the morning. But that sounds like a great way to get it in.
Well, and it is. You do have to. That's what we see. We've been experimenting with this because it is very difficult to find a palatable way to consume a beef liver. But my wife, I think she put it the best when the first week we started eating beef liver. She went to the gym to do her once a week eccentric weight training, and she came back and she said, "Jonathan, I felt mighty at the gym."
Oh yeah, it's so true.
She just felt mighty.
Mighty. That's a great word, and I know it's like how do you make that leap for people? That organ meats translate to better mitochondrial function, better cellular energy, and it's the easiest, fastest way to boost the health of the entire body as well as strengthen this main organ system. So yeah, I can see where she felt mighty.
Well, Christa, I love it. Well, to close and to wrap up, what are some more, we say spiritual. Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean when you say spiritual, and what are some things we could start to do to living a smarter, more spiritually whole life?
Oh, well, lots of things you can do. I've recently been really into the book, The Healing Code by Alex Lloyd. That might be a book worth looking into for people who have health challenges that they just can't quite seem to get on top of, because I do believe that the body is a messenger for the soul. And you have sometimes, it's going to give us messages, persistent messages, until we actually listen. So that's a good book. Carving out time for yourself. I love having the simple act of before you go to bed, let's knock off technology at least 30 minutes before bed and create that quiet time to reflect on your day. And I'll have clients, and I do this myself, keep a gratitude journal. Write down 5 or 10 things that you genuinely felt grateful for, whether it could be a smile from a stranger or having a healthy meal or whatever you genuinely felt gratitude for, because I absolutely believe what you focus on expands, and gratitude is a very high vibe feeling. And the more we feel it, the more we attract more things to be grateful for, and we get more and more in tune with a higher version of ourselves.
Love the idea of the gratitude journal, and I will complement that with a practice that my wife and I have been fortunate enough to be enjoying for the entirety of our 5-year relationship, 3 of which have been a wonderful marriage. And that's every day we find one thing, and we make it be one so that we can keep on top of it. One thing we can say we appreciate about the other person every single day.
Well, I love that.
And it could be something as simple as, I really appreciate the way you looked at me when I walked in the door tonight. Like, it does not have to be something big. It just has to be that continuous reminder that there, and actually, I think, Christa, that sometimes it's the smallest things where even sharing with the other person that you notice that. And it doesn't have to be just with your spouse. It could be with your friends. Just telling people every day, here's one thing. And maybe if it's unnatural, if it's just your buddy and you call him on the phone and you're like, every day, let me tell you, but you see what I'm saying.
No, and I agree with you. I actually think instead of saying, I like the way you so-and-so, when you said that example of the way you looked at me, I mean, those are the things that with friendships or anything build intimacy, or like, I felt that you had my back, and sharing that. If we can become more vulnerable and more authentic, we become infinitely happier. And it's true. And I think we all have those feelings throughout the day. And I texted one of my best friends. Sometimes I just get so overwhelmed with love and gratitude for her that I don't let her know. And so finally I just started texting her, and she's like, oh, that makes my heart melt. And it's like, why wouldn't we share these things when we feel it? And so there's so much strength in vulnerability, and just honest, open, beautiful relationships are the best part of life. And they make us healthy and happy, and that changes ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, Christa, thank you so much for joining us. And listeners, hopefully you've enjoyed Christa as much as I have. Certainly a delight. And you can learn all about her and all of her great work at thewholejourney.com. And you'll also find her wonderful new ebook, which is 180 delicious ways to use food as medicine, which you know I love. And then she's also got some wonderful resources up there to help you make smarter choices in the grocery store. And Christa, if you could leave us with one thing, just one thing that we could start doing today to help live a happier and more whole life, what would that be?
Just one thing?
It's just got to be one.
Oh, my God. Then I'm going to give you an umbrella of embrace.
You can't wish for more wishes. It doesn't.
Okay, so embrace the 80-20 balance. Honestly, just have the intention every single day to be a little bit healthier and a little bit happier, and start that off when you wake up with that intention, and then it will actually start to happen in your life.
And Christa, I'll give you one bonus on top of that, because I don't want to get the last word in. But I do want to say that intention, folks might say, yeah, no, I mean, I get that. We don't actually, right? Most of us start the intention of, I'm going to eat less today. Like, I'm just going to eat less. And that's not, and there's a big distinction between the intention of I'm going to eat less and I'm going to take actions that will make me happier and healthier. Right, Christa?
Yes, exactly. I want to live a healthier, happier life, and just setting that intention, and you'll just automatically start making different choices for yourself. It's never about eating less. Most of us, like I said, are in metabolic devastation. It's about eating more, higher quality foods with more frequency. So many of us are stuck in this cycle of hypoglycemia that's leading to all these endocrine disorders. So eat more high quality food more often, and your life will improve.
Christa Orecchio, thank you for the insights, the wisdom, and for your beautiful blue eyes. Everyone should go to the whole journey, if for no other reason, to be like, those are some good eyes.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's sweet. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I did. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Talk with you soon.